This morning, we are joined by Oklahoma City Mayor David Holt.
Mayor Holt, thanks for joining us. We missed you the last couple of weeks. Time to catch up with you. How you doing?
Indeed. I'm doing great. Good morning.
Good morning. Big action from the council this week on the MAPS 4 projects, kind of reallocating millions of sales tax dollars for some projects. Can you explain why that happened?
Yeah, so the amount of money that we have available for MAPS 4 is really just dependent on how much is raised by a 1-cent tax that the voters approved in 2019. And that's just based on an estimate. And the last 2 years have brought great economic growth in the city and, some unique inflationary events. And so we really believed, and we've got very conservative and very professional and very accomplished, financial people that work for the city who've done a great job in the past. And they really believed that there was $100 million more that we could expect from the MAPS 4 tax. And so that would bring the total from $978 million all the way to almost $1.1 billion. And so we wanted to go ahead and allocate those dollars to the 16 projects so they could all depend on it. They're facing inflationary pressures, from construction costs, so they ought to benefit from the new revenues we brought in. So we did a pro rata distribution. All the projects got about a 10% bump, and that'll obviously help them meet the expectations that they had originally. So it was good news, great news, really, and we're excited to see it.
Mayor, water from Canton Lake is flowing right now to Lake Hefner as we speak to help with drinking water storages, and it's the first time we've had to do that in more than a decade. Explain that process and kind of what you say to the folks in Canton that are worried about this process.
Well, I know that the Water Trust and the utility leadership here in Oklahoma City doesn't do that lightly. We, the taxpayers of Oklahoma City, did pay for the water rights of that lake about 30 years ago. So, it is something that we used our tax dollars on to give us the ability to turn to that in times of water crisis. And I think we're at that moment right now once again. We hadn't done this in 9 years. So we did take this release. I know that folks made sure that it wasn't one that would have too much of an impact on Canton Lake, and it obviously meets the needs of 1.4 million people who live in the OKC metropolitan area that depend on that water for their very survival. So it's a very serious issue. I think people are very sensitive to the impact it has on Canton Lake, but at the same time, we've got needs here for 1.4 million people, and we paid money to have that right. But I think it is important that people in Oklahoma City remember the necessity of water conservation. And of course, we are on a permanent odd-even watering schedule. So remember that. If you're an odd or even address, you can only water on those calendar days.
Sure.
And also think about all the other ways that you can conserve water at times like this.
Mr. Mayor, real quick, we just have a few seconds left, but for the second year in a row, Oklahoma City being recognized for public art, it's kind of a big deal.
Yeah, well, I think it shows it's not a fluke. We got it 2 years in a row now. We're the top public art city in America. About a decade or so ago, we created a 1% for Art ordinance. We also created a cultural position at the city held by Robbie Kinzel, who we unfortunately lost earlier this year, but she did a fantastic job shepherding that art through the process and made sure that Oklahoma City is obviously the best city in America for public art.
There you go. All right, Mr. Mayor, hey, thanks for spending time with us here this morning. We appreciate it.
Absolutely. Thank you. Have a great day.